Welcome to Coffee and the Bull.
Hey guys, Mike and John with Coffee and the Bull. I want to say thank y'all for taking a moment out of your brand new year to listen to our podcast. This is the first episode of January. The other one landed just before and kind of carried us in, but this is the first one dedicated to 2025.
Yep.
And we're going to be talking about, hey, I didn't sign up for this. It's going to be the title of this episode. It's going to cover some things where life didn't turn your way. You're looking around and this isn't what you signed up for. This isn't what you thought it was going to be. You're not where you thought would be at this point in life.
Yep.
So that's what we're going to be addressing today. But beforehand, we're going to kind of get started. We got a message from, you want to pull it up?
Oh, yeah.
Way to be prepared, John. We got a message from a friend of John's who has known him for several years, and to keep a little bit of anonymity to us, we're not going to put his name out. But like we said, if you send us something, we're going to, if you're fine with us sharing it, we're going to share it, and just kind of let everybody kind of experience what you're going through, or what review or whatever, what have you. So, John.
So, like Mike was saying, a good friend of mine messaged, When the World Turns Dark was a legit one of the best podcasts I've listened to. It feels less lonely when you know other men feel the same way you do, and we're all out here just simply trying to find peace. It's easy to forget when the world turns dark that the Lord has promised us peace through faith in Him. I just want to say thank you for putting out the raw truth. And so that's kind of where we're taking into today's episode with, I didn't sign up for this. We start out as little kids on the playground, making friends with everybody, and hey, you want to go to my house and play video games, or, whatever the case may be. And then all of a sudden you're an adult and, you're on divorce number 2, or you're on job number 900, or whatever the case may be. And you realize, I didn't sign up for this.
Right.
I didn't sign up for the constant struggles and the battles and the uphill fights every single day.
Right.
And it changes, in your day-to-day operation. As a kid, we knew that, okay, so Billy doesn't share his toys, so I don't want to be friends with him. Well, now you're an adult and, you move into, I don't know if I like that guy, or I don't know if I can be friends with that guy, or, how is this opportunity going to adjust or change my life? And it makes it so complex that you just sit down one day and go, I didn't sign up for any of this.
Well, I know with honestly, I believe every kid growing up. So all the listeners, when you revert back, down memory lane, and you look at how you were in high school or junior high or whatever, like we all had ambitions of.
Right.
I'm going to be a millionaire. Like, I'm going to be loaded.
Right.
I'm going to get a good job. I
What
got
do they
all
call
these
it?
ideas.
The delusions of grandeur.
Yeah, maybe. But I'm going to have all this going on so that I don't have to be paycheck to paycheck. I don't have to worry about bills like my parents had to. I'm going to be better than them. Nothing against them, but it's just if typically parents try to provide a better life for the kids, so you want to take advantage of that, and I'm going to be the guy. Hey, we're going to go on trips to Bali or wherever exotic place you want to go to. We're going to do this, and I'm going to have a big house. Fancy cars, if you're into Ferraris or Lamborghinis, that might have been your thing or whatever.
So my little boy always tells me he's going to buy me a Ferrari.
Right. And so it's like we had all these ideas of where we would be at, and now you turn, we're knocking on 40, and you're like, all right, well, did not get the big house.
Right.
Don't have the $1 million in the bank account. Don't have, all this going on. And, while I'm not, necessarily, I say that I'm not loaded with money, I'm not signing up to miss a paycheck either.
Right.
I'm not trying to be like, I don't need this job and tell my boss to shove it. Like, I'm not, definitely not taking was it Alan Jackson who sang that song? Take this job and shove it.
Yeah.
Not trying to be that guy, because I can't be that guy. I can't. I have obligations, and and I don't. I drive. At this point in time, I drive a 1995 Chevy pickup truck.
Right.
It was free. I've been in the spots where I've had the nice vehicles and things like that. And if you would have told me, 19-year-old Mike, this is what I would be at this age, then I'd be like, I doubt that. Like, I don't know who
Right.
you're looking at, but that's not going to be who I am. I'm going to college. I got a degree.
I'm gonna be an aeronautical
I'm
engineer.
gonna do all this stuff. And that's not what happened. Instead, I don't have. I wanted a big family. Several kids and everything. I've got one kid, and there's nothing wrong with having one kid. But nothing that I thought as a younger guy, nothing I thought life would be at almost 40 years old is what's happening.
Right.
And so it kind of puts you in a depressed state where you're like, hey, this isn't what I signed up for. What happened? Where did I lose track? Where did I drop the ball? Is the way we look at it. When did I become a failure?
Right.
And we go down that rabbit hole and we beat ourselves up, and you just like, and that's what I think that alludes to the midlife crisis.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, for some guys who, hey, they've been married for 10, 15 years, and then they get a divorce just because there's a more attractive female out there. It's not even that there was issues at home.
Right.
It's just they want something different, try to get it back on track. And then you see all these different things where you're like, why would you do that? Why would you go, you took a mortgage out on your house to go buy this expensive car that nobody cares about. You're 50 years old with back problems. You're climbing in and out of a Corvette,
Right.
Who saw that was going to be an issue,
Right.
And so it's like you see all these things go on, and I think a lot of his guys we didn't sign up for this. It's not what you selected, kind of like you play video games or whatever. You select your avatar in the beginning of the game, and what map you want to play. Well, no,
Right.
that's not where this
Right,
isn't what I
right.
selected.
This ain't the
isn't what I
Sims.
chose.
Yeah.
But I think and we can break it down for some guys who are like, I don't really know what you're talking about, Mike. I'm living the dream. Well, this maybe isn't the episode for you.
Right.
Tune back into the next episode.
Right.
But
It's a successful one.
yeah, we'll do one for people who have everything in the bag next week.
Right.
But and this is something I think you could probably take a little bit better approach than I can. Is when you look at guys who are looking at divorce, that is I'm not going to say a problem, but it's an issue that guys deal with.
Right.
Probably more prevalent than a lot of other things, because it's not uncommon to get a divorce.
Especially not nowadays.
Not nowadays. It's very easy. It's not back when our parents were coming up. It was at least down in the South, it was looked at as shame, shame, shame.
Right. Right.
But they still did it.
Right.
But now it's not uncommon.
But it was a rarity though. Like it's the dynamic of divorces has changed.
Mm-hmm.
Like our great grandparents and grandparents, divorce wasn't a thing. That was like,
Right.
Oh my God, blasphemy. Whereas like our parents, I remember growing up, like divorce wasn't on the table unless it was like domestic violence or
Right.
like massive adultery or financial,
It
burdens or
wasn't,
whatever.
hey, I don't like you anymore.
Right. It was, we're going to tough it out. And I'll be the first one to say social media has destroyed the relationships of today's society because you have so many DMs and high school sweethearts, what could have happened bullshit that pops in. And so, to not to derail us too far, but honestly, I think that in today's society, if you're looking at your life and you're going, where did I drop the ball? Where did I fail? Then you're not looking at what you have achieved and what you can achieve from where you are. And that leads me to the problem and the solution. The problem is you and the solution is you.
Right.
For example, growing up, I wanted to have a big old house. I wanted to have a lot of kids. I wanted to have the big happy family. I wanted the house that everybody was like, oh, it's so-and-so's birthday, or, oh, we're going to have a get-together for a holiday or a party. Where are we going to do it at? Let's go to John's house. That's what I wanted. Mm-hmm. I wanted the house big enough to facilitate everybody, coming over. And now I'm looking at, okay, sure, I got a 5-bedroom house. I got 4 bathrooms. It's a good big house. I hate this house.
Right.
The nobody tells you with the big house comes, the upkeep, the maintenance, the mortgage, the insurance, all the things that it requires. I mean, I know you remember back in August, September when I was like, my electric bill is $600-700.
Right.
Yeah,
you can have that.
Yeah, right. Like I was excited. I just paid the electric bill this morning. It was $368, and I was like, oh, got a little extra pocket money.
Right.
I can buy a snack, like, and that's the delusions of grandeur, we never thought about what else it was. It's why I'm selling the house, because it's like, I don't need this. This
Right.
isn't, life didn't bring me where I wanted to be, and I need to simplify where I'm at, because having the big house, I've got 2 bedrooms I don't even use. And to be fair, it's technically 3, because my daughter cannot help herself at 2 in the morning to come crawling to bed with daddy.
Right. She might as well not have a room.
Right. Like, I don't even know what it's there for, because it's the living room or my room. That's where she ends up. So, and my son is just as bad. Middle of the day, what are you doing in here? And he's like, I just want to lay in your room. I'm like, you have a whole bedroom to yourself. I know. I'm like, okay, all right, whatever. So it's like I said, you're the problem and you're the solution. If you get yourself into that boat where we start looking at life and, hey, I've got a 20-year marriage with, a woman that's saved up $50,000 in the bank account because she's kind of stringent with the money. Frugal. She doesn't want to spend your money. She's a stay-at-home mom. You got 2 kids and you got one in college and one's a teen, and your wife's at home and she's doing all the right things that a stay-at-home wife does. And, you're at work making good money, and something young and pretty and shiny comes in, and you're like, well, I'm going to walk away from this, and I'm going to jump into this because this pretty shiny thing is talking to me. And you don't realize that now you're going to pay alimony, you're still going to pay child support, and you're going to walk away from that. You're going to blow through all your money because you're trying to impress the shiny thing. But when it's all gone, and now you're stuck with well, you're not so shiny now, are you? And that's where we as men, we start to screw up when we have those midlife crises, where you start looking at this is annoying, or she's doing this that's bothering me, or you walk away from that job that you've been at for 20 plus years, and you're like, man, I've worked here for 20 years and I get zero respect, or I don't get the promotions, or I don't get the raises. What are you doing to show the boss that you deserve that stuff? Are you actually doing everything in your power to show them that you deserve that promotion or that raise or whatever? And that's one of the things that I had the revelation with the first agency that we worked at. And I walked away because I felt like I was getting the carrot rubbed in front of my face. And to a degree I was. And I'm not bad-mouthing that agency. I actually have a lot of respect for the agency itself. Maybe not all the people, but the agency itself. But I walked away because I kept feeling like they're dangling the carrot in front of my face. But I also know in reality, if I would have just shut up and stopped pointing out every single thing to prove that I was right, it didn't matter how many great things I was doing and how many things I was accomplishing as in that role. They would have been like, well, this is just a street level guy, but he's doing XYZ stuff up here. If he could just shut up and stop saying, well, no, you're an idiot because of this, this, and this, I probably could have made it farther.
Well, I think, a lot of the male issues come from our egos.
Yeah.
and our sense that, because you look at it in any profession, it could be welders, this welder, we think we're not replaceable.
Right.
And what I mean by that is, like I remember when I was working in the plants, every welder thought that they were the top dog.
Right.
Everybody else's welds were trash. They're going to have ferocity in them, or whatever different terminology that would be an issue for weld, air pockets or whatever. But no, theirs will be perfect. Everybody else is trash. Theirs will be perfect.
Right.
Theirs will stand up to the test of time. And same thing with cops. The best cop is the one you're dealing with, or is himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know when I spent a little bit of time as a canine handler, and one of the things that I learned, and I spent a lot of time because I wanted to be good at it. I spent a lot of time on these forums. That it's canine handlers that have, some of them have decades of experience and they pass it on. And one of the things that I found, it applied for canine handlers, but it also applied in a lot of other areas too. Is the only thing 2 canine handlers will agree on is that the third one's doing it wrong.
Right.
Right. And when you really break that down, you're like, God, that applies across the board.
Yeah.
We all think we're the best at what we're doing.
Right.
And what that does is makes us think we're irreplaceable. And so when you get at work, you're like, if I quit,
this place will burn.
This place will burn to the ground.
Right.
Well, surprise, Timmy, you quit.
And it's still going.
They still kept rolling.
I want to point out that Hammond Harley Davidson failed after I left.
It's but
I don't know if that's a correlation.
I don't think it had anything to do with you. I think
I'm going to run with my story.
Selling overpriced motorcycles. But anyway, it's you have it where if I leave, this is going to go downhill because none of these guys know what they're doing. They're so dumb. I hold their hands, and they are blessed to have me. Well, that's not the mindset that you've got to have, that you can have. You can have that thought process, but you also have to realize that, hey, 100% you are replaceable. And I know a lot of guys, on the marriage side of things, where they think that, hey, they are the it's their house,
bread and butter to the house.
I'm the breadwinner.
Right.
She better respect me and and all this other stuff because she's just a stay-at-home mom, or she only does this or that, and so they're like they think that they are what holds a family unit together, and so they think they're irreplaceable. Well, all of a sudden, yes, she was wearing sweatpants, but now all of a sudden she's got a gym membership and she's in shape, and then you got all these other guys, and you're like, all right, well, I left her, but I still don't want her to be happy with all these other people.
Right, and you're still cutting that check every month for alimony.
And so it's like you that idea that, hey, I'm not replaceable, that that I'm owed better than what I've got, is what drives us to a lot of the decisions that we make, where it's just not good. And don't get me wrong, sometimes things just don't work out.
Yep.
I'll give it that. Like I had a business, and I put a lot of blood, sweat, tears, missed a lot of events because I was doing jobs. It was
family, friends,
a little construction job. Or little construction business, and I worked my butt off. I'm not, there were years where it was, averaging 3 to 4 hours of sleep a day, and that was what it was, and because I had work to do. I'm busting my knuckles and busting skin and elbows, and you name it, I was giving it everything I had. And it just didn't work out. It's maybe I just didn't have the business acumen that I thought I had. And I had some employees were good, some employees were terrible, and so it just worked out where it's like, hey, you know what, this is not going to keep going, and I realized that, hey, you can chalk it up as a failure, you can chalk it up as a learning experience, however you want to look at it.
Right.
That business did not become the dream that I thought it was going to be, because I thought I'm going to grow this thing up. I'll be the guy. I show up to work, collect a check, and I leave.
Right.
And have somebody run it for me. Well, that's not how life goes.
Right.
And that's not, honestly, that's probably why it didn't work, because if you look at any successful business owner, that's not how they operate. they have to be dedicated
present
to it.
and
but
there.
There's also a trade-off where they don't get to spend the time at home.
But look at how much your relationships, and I don't just mean home relationships, I mean friend relationships, everything else. Look at how much they diminished during that time, not over the whole time, because obviously not every one of them failed or lost or whatever, but you're getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep. You become a monster in your own way.
Yeah, just grumpy and tired,
because you're exhausted, you're tired, you've got a million irons in the fire, as they say, and so you're taking yourself away from all of the other relationships in your life. And I think that a lot of men get to that point where we either we break something off and we say, okay, well, I need to focus on this, so I'm going to lose my family and my marriage. Or you say, okay, well, I can't hang out with Bill, Ted, and Dave because, our Saturday night poker, well, now I've got this job, I've got to work overtime, and if I go spend 4 hours smoking and drinking with them, I'm not going to get the sleep I need for Sunday.
Right.
And then we can even jump into faith. Like, how many times did you miss church because you had a job to do?
Right.
Or
that's one of the first things that goes.
Is
your spiritual walk.
It is. And so it's one of the things that we as guys, we don't ever think about that. That's never a factor in our brain because we don't ever put that forethought into it to say, okay, I know that I've got a job. I know that I work a 12-hour shift. And if I keep jumping on the 12-hour overtimes or staying over 4 or 5 hours, yeah, sure, it looks great on paper when you look at your paycheck. Mm-hmm. But in the end of the day, what did you lose? And we never look at that. We never look at what we're gaining versus what we're losing. And so I remember Mike when Mike was working and a business owner. And I remember Mike when Mike was a business owner, and I didn't see Mike very often. Right. It cost me $40,000 to see Mike. And that's because I had to hire you to fucking remodel my house. I mean, freaking is what I said. TikTok
Quack.
people, quack. But that's the other aspect to it is we get ourselves into that road where we hyper focus on one area. Usually it's a profession, and we try to get ourselves into a financial standing to where we feel we can cut back. But now your boss looks at you and goes, okay, well, you were working overtime, and you were the guy we could call on. We gave you everything you asked for. Now we can't ever get you on the phone.
Right.
We couldn't get you to work a day of overtime if we paid you triple what we were paying you now. And if you don't do that, you never get that. Your family's going, well, you're gone all the time. We see you, when you come and when you leave, and that's it. And then you get into that boat where it's like you've lost your wife, you've lost your children. You're paying more money now that you've lost them in alimony or child support or whatever. And now you're stuck in that rock and a hard place where it's like, do I keep going down this road and eventually break myself physically, mentally, emotionally, and now I'm staring down the barrel or the bottle, one of the two things that are going to put you in an early grave? Or do you get yourself back to where you used to be? And you are the deciding factor. You have to be the solution to your problem. And the problem is you, and the only way you're going to make it out is to fix yourself.
Well, so I know that for the longest time, I don't know if they call it the rat race or whatever they call it.
Right.
We were always me and my wife. We were always focused on. I think it was more me than her. She was more so just supportive of me,
Right.
Because she couldn't care where we lived or what we any of that other stuff. But I wanted to have the big nice house, the big piece of property, the nice cars. And all this other stuff. And so what I found was at one point I had the 200,000 square foot farmhouse, a nice little piece of property or whatever.
Yep.
Now, granted, it wasn't a multi-million-dollar piece of property or anything, but it was a decent little property. And, I had a nice, truck that, if I was to buy it brand new, it would be $100,000 truck, and so she was driving something nice. And so it's like all that was going on, but I was working all the time in order to put that out there.
Yeah.
And so what I was doing was I was missing out on the little things, when my son was a toddler, and don't get me wrong, I wasn't an absent dad. Like we had great times, and I got great memories with my son or whatever, but you miss out on those opportunities. And so what we did recently in the last 2 years, year and a half or so, is we started focusing on, hey, I don't want to have a mortgage. I don't want to have a car note. I don't want to have all this other stuff. And so that's why we downgraded and, went from, a nice house down to, a house that was built in 1953 that we are redoing everything,
Right.
and it's been, kind of hectic doing it, but it's all been cash flowed and stuff like that. And I got rid of the big diesel truck, and now I'm driving, an older thing that doesn't have a note. It cranks every time I go to crank it. And so I can't complain there. But also what it did was it brings up this thing where, rather than me chasing, because before it was, hey, I could quit a job so long as the next job pays more.
Right. Right.
And so it was one of the things where you always quit up, you always,
Right.
so long as you're moving up, whatever, well, now it was, hey, look, if my wife, she was changing jobs, and it's going to be a little bit of a pay cut. It's like, hey, let's make that happen because it was going to be a better move.
Right.
It was going to present more time. Either her being at home better, or just not being as exhausted or
Right.
agitated when she shows up. And it was I'm happy where I'm at. Don't get me wrong. Like, I like my job. I like where I'm at. I like the agency I work for and everything. But you always have these conversations where it's like, okay, what if something else presented itself? Well, we're now, if we have a conversation with it, we're not necessarily stressed about how much money is going to come in. Like, it was, hey, if you decide you want to go do this or that, we can afford to take a pay cut, and it changed our whole dynamic because
Right.
rather than focusing on, and I think that's where it's at, is typically your focus as a guy is, hey, I want to be good at work. I want to outshine this guy. That way I can get this promotion. And if I get this promotion, a couple years later, I should be able to get, if I get the supervisory spot, a couple years later, I should be able to get the manager spot. From there, all I got to do is make friends with this guy, give it about 5 years, and then I could be the regional manager. And
Right.
you're playing this chess game.
You're trying to map it out. Yeah.
You're putting together they call it your 5-year plan, 10-year plan. I don't know what that means. But anyway,
Yeah.
you take and you put all this together because nobody wants to be the guy on the bottom. You always
Right.
want to be the guy people answer to, and we focus on that. Well, you lose focus at home. And so what I found was, I kind of shifted my focus where I'm not concerned about, going up a ladder at work or anything like that. I've been a business owner. Like
Right.
I know what stress is at the top of the ladder. If you've never been on top of the ladder, you don't really know. You think you know, but you don't.
Right.
And so it's like, I'm not concerned about climbing the ladder. I'm not going to turn down a promotion, but I'm also not concerned, oh, let me go, sabotage this guy so I look better, because that happens, focusing at home. And so now it's all of a sudden, when I get off work, I'm happy at home. I'm taking in, and while there's still stress, there's still things that's got to be done. I don't feel like I don't belong in my own house.
Right.
Because that's what happened, for the longest time was I would get home and I'd sit in my recliner. I'm like, all right, I'm sitting down, but in 30 minutes, I've got to get up. I've got to go put my boots on. I've got to go grease the Bobcat so I can load it up on the trailer. If I do all that tonight, I can sleep for an extra 15 minutes tomorrow morning. And like you're just going down this thing where you're at home, but your brain's gone, and so I think a lot of what we've got going on is, you didn't sign up for this. You didn't sign up for this life to be going the way it is. You didn't, you wanted, a different map out, but you don't get to play the victim. You're the one doing it to
Right. Exactly.
Majority of the time. You're the one doing it to yourself within reason. Again, now, like you had an issue where a spouse cheated on you. You can't help that.
Right.
But at the same time, you can't harp on it and play like you get to be like we've talked about several times. When I lost a job,
Right.
my wife
Take
told
today.
me, "Hey, take today, wallow, cry, do whatever. If you want to go sit outside in the mud and just boo-hoo for 4 hours, you go do you, boo.
Right.
But tomorrow it's time to get to work." Well,
Right.
and let's present that to the listeners. Hey, I get it's not going the way you want it to go. I get, your bank account has more zeros in it, than it does other numbers.
Right.
Like I get all that. I get that. Hey,
Right.
you're choosing your beer based on the price, not based on the flavor.
Right.
I've been there. I understand what you're going through, but you don't get to stay the victim. You can't
Right.
if you're going to stay the victim. And this is where I think I don't listen to a lot of David Goggins stuff, because I think it's a little bit more aggressive than what a lot of guys need.
Correct.
But I think that's where his stop being a mindset comes from.
Yeah.
Is hey, you can't, by all means, take today. But you got to move on. Like
Right.
it's time to get up out of the mud. You can't stay there. And so, we see it a lot with divorces. You get so at work. I think I would say probably 50% of the calls for service, probably come from some form of either
Relationship
child custody
turmoil
or relationship turmoil where you
Yep.
show up and it's a husband and wife or boyfriend girlfriend or whatever who. At one point, they loved each other.
Yeah.
At one point, they made the decision, hey, we want to move in together. This is the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. And now, when we get called, they absolutely hate each other.
Oh, yeah.
And
Bottom of the barrel, the most pettiest fights over the dumbest, and we say dumbest. We say dumbest because it's in our brains in those moments. You're like, this is petty. We're really fighting over whether or not he put the butter knife in the sink or left it on the counter.
Right.
And in reality, it's one of those things where she's told him 1,000,000 times the sink is 3 inches to the left. Just put it in the sink. And we as men, in our brains, are like, I might want another peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
Right.
So I'm not going to put the knife in the sink because the moment that knife touches the sink, I'm not using it again. And then I got to go get another one and get it dirty. But we as men, we never go back when we realize we didn't want another peanut butter and jelly sandwich, put the knife in the sink.
I'm going to say it come across as one of the dumbest calls I've ever been to.
Right.
And this is, I'm not going to say names, not going to say where it happened at, so good luck finding it. I got sent to a house because a husband and wife were having an argument, right? And I didn't have any information other than they were arguing, and they hung up the phone. So it's like I get there and I walk up, and female comes outside. Hey, I'm Deputy Phillips with the sheriff's office. You called us. What can I do for you? He won't change the batteries in the smoke detector. And I looked. I remember because it was one of the days where I had a lot mentally going on, and I remember looking at her like, "You called us,
Right?
Because he wouldn't put batteries in the smoke detector." And so I'm like, "All right." I'd also got an email, from the administration, because it was, we had high call volume, and they're like, look, we understand that sometimes you may think something's dumb. You may think, hey, this is not a reason to call law enforcement, but these people, for whatever reason, this is their emergency. This is what they need attention on.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, try to take that. And I remember thinking, I was like, why didn't you call the fire department for this? Like,
right.
I feel like smoke detectors or fire department
right
issue,
up their alley.
Literally, you can get a 45-minute session on the reasons to change, on why to change the batteries and smoke detectors or whatever. And so I'm like, all right. And so I'm listening to her. He's a no good, lazy, sack of crap, and all this other stuff. And I'm talking about, she is just berating this dude. And he's on the porch. She's off the porch in the driveway talking to me. And he's just on the porch. He's not saying nothing. He's just sitting in a chair. And I'm talking about, she's they're just this dude was slime among slime.
Right, right.
And it's like, all right, let me go talk to him. And so I go up there and talk to him. And I was like, look, man, why don't you change the batteries of the smoke detector? One, it keeps me from getting called to your house. Because honestly, I was looking at it from a selfish standpoint. I was like, look, it keeps me from getting called to your house. She's 5'2". She probably doesn't want to pull the ladder out to climb to the 9-foot ceiling and change a smoke detector battery out. He goes, and it was the funniest thing I think I'd ever heard. He goes, I would rather listen to the beeping of the battery being dead and listen to her whine and complain than listen to it go off every time she cooks. I laughed so hard. He said, bro, she could burn everything. She goes, he's like, she can't cook to save her life, but yet I'm responsible for changing. He goes, you know how long it takes for a battery to burn up because it's constantly beep, 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 beep going off? He goes, she's killing the 9-volt batteries. I'm just like, if ever there was a valid argument
right.
to a dumb argument, that was it. I was like, I got nothing.
Right.
Like, I wish y'all the best, and I just left. Like, I can't solve that.
Right.
But I thought it was hilarious. You wouldn't think there'd be a counter argument to it, but there was. But it's one of those things where something so petty, something so small,
right,
and she I'm telling you, she berated him like he was a piece of crap. And don't get me wrong, he was not the nicest to her either, but they're living together. They formed a house together. They got kids together, and they're taking this approach where something as simple as a $6 battery going inside of a smoke detector became a crisis
catalyst,
for them,
right?
It became a crisis, and I don't know what puts guys in that spot. Like, I don't know how you get to where something so minor. Obviously, there's something underneath the surface.
Right.
But I from the standpoint of being a guy who's obviously been in a marriage long enough, I know that there are very minor things that me and my wife will fight over, and we both know at the time we're fighting, it's over something bigger.
Right.
That we're not even really mad about what we're arguing over. But I found in my life a lot of that changed the moment I stopped focusing on work all the time and focusing on everything else and started focusing on things that would make my home life better.
Right.
All of a sudden, a lot of those arguments ended. And don't get me wrong, we still have our spots where we're like, hey, look, I need you to leave me alone for a little bit. And she'll tell me, hey, I need you to leave me alone for a little bit. And that's fine. But that's just two people living together. But I think so many times we get so distracted by, hey, this isn't, this life isn't going. I guarantee you, if you'd have found that dude at 16-year-old, whatever his name was, and be like, hey, in 20 years, you're going to call the cops, and you're going to be like, she wants me to change the smoke detector batteries, I'm not doing it. That's the dumbest thing in the world,
Right.
So
right.
It's one of the things where you get a lot of marital drama that honestly isn't that big of a deal, but it's because the focus has shifted rather from each other. Because you look at the weddings, people
Right.
get married all the time, and it's he wants to make her happy, which is why he spends an outrageous amount on an engagement ring and a wedding ring and a ceremony and all this other stuff. She spends an outrageous amount on a dress she's going to wear maybe one time for 15 minutes. And gets these flowers and this cake. You spend all this money on all these different things because these two want to put their life together,
Right.
And for, a tenth of the cost, you can get divorced and just make payments to each other the rest of your life.
Right.
You
Right.
know, and so that's, and I always found it interesting that, how easily some people go down that road now.
My thing has always been, if I treat everything like a rock in your shoe, and what I mean by that is sometimes be middle of work and I'll find there's a rock or something in my shoe. To a degree, I can put up with it for a minute if I'm not in a position to stop and take my boot off and take the rock out.
Mm-hmm.
I do the same thing with the relationships, and amongst of all the people that I'm friends with or whatever that I'm dating, I'm trying to meet somebody or try to find somebody to spend life with. There are certain things that people do that in my brain I'm immediately gonna go, you're like the rock in my shoe, and I can tolerate this for a little while, but eventually we're gonna address the rock,
Right.
and I'm either just gonna cut you off completely, or we're gonna take the rock out and be able to move on, and it's one of the reasons now, close to my 40s, and trying to date and trying to get into relationships. And I look at the dumb things like, is she going to nag me about the smoke detector? Jokes on everybody. There are no smoke detectors in my house. And if there are no batteries in them. Not because they beep, but because I probably
Right.
just didn't replace them. Actually, I don't think I put any back up after you painted, after you did the work in the hallways. But that's the stuff, like I drink Red Bulls. I drink them all the time. That's my go-to drink. And one of the arguments that my ex would have with me all the time was the Red Bull cans. And part of it is I forget. I would genuinely forget where I left the can. I'd go open another one or whatever, and then I'd find it, or and I'd end up having like 4 or 5 cans everywhere. I can tell you where they all are right now. They're on the grill out back, because that's where I end every day, is walk out back, take the dog to the bathroom, set my Red Bull down on the
Right.
grill, and then I completely forget about it. So there's a good probably 12 or 13 of them out there that I just need to go pick up. But that was one of the things that would drive her up a wall. You leave your cans everywhere, Granted, she did some things.
No. I 100% agree with her that you could have easily picked them up. I get you forgot them, but
Shut
when you
up.
walk back
Mind your
by 'em, you
business.
can pick them up.
Whose side are you on?
That being said, it doesn't justify going and sleeping around with somebody else. So I'll play devil's advocate for both sides.
I like you're like someone else, as if it wasn't like everyone else. But anyway, so it's that goes back to you're the problem, you're the solution. Like, everybody knew that something wasn't right. Everybody knew there was a problem, and when it all came to a head, it was me who had to solve the problem. I was the problem. Not so much in the relationship. Clearly it was going downhill, and it wasn't my fault that it was going downhill. I can't control somebody sleeping with other people or doing the things that she was doing, but I can control whether I'm in the situation or not. And that's why it was okay. I'm going to have to divorce you. I'm going to have to make you leave the house, go get your own place, and go our separate ways, because if I stay in this and I continue to try to work through this, I'm the problem. I'm continuing to allow this toxic, bad situation to keep going forward, knowing that there's nothing in this for me. There's no reward versus, loss. Everything in this is my fault because I'm allowing it to continue. It's the same thing with a bad job with bad bosses. I know everybody's seen the meme. Nobody leaves a good job. Everybody leaves bad bosses. It's the same thing with relationships. Nobody leaves a good relationship. They leave bad wives or whatever. Right. To the exception, we all make that mistake of we left a really good job because we misunderstood the signals or misunderstood what we were doing in that job that wasn't allowing us to progress. Right. And we jumped onto what was shiny and pretty. And I did that. I left a good job for a job that I thought was great because the pay was good. I didn't calculate in what they were charging me for healthcare. I didn't calculate what they were charging me for a take-home vehicle. I definitely wasn't accounting for the politics and everything else that came with that. And I left a decent job with a good ability to move forward and learn for a job that I thought was going to give me the things that I had hoped for.
More rapid satisfaction.
Right. With even promises of in 6 months here, we're going to do this, and this. And they failed me. They failed me to a point that I almost left that career field altogether because I was like, you guys did me so dirty that I left a place where, granted, I wasn't getting what I wanted right away, but I wasn't treated like I was an idiot or treated like a burden. I was actually valued when I would show up. People wanted me to show up. You know, there were constant phone calls that at the time I thought, well, this is annoying. But it was, hey, man, how do I do this? Hey, this is the situation. How do we play this out? To another place where it was like, nobody wanted to call you because your name in the upper areas, you know, brought in a distaste in their mouth. And again, it was me. I was the problem because I was continuing to stay in a situation that I thought could get better, and it couldn't. It ended up biting me in the backside, you know. And same thing goes with everything else we do in life. We have to realize and evaluate our situations and say, is this a good situation or a bad situation? And if it's a good situation, stay in it. Put the work into it, whether it's your marriage, whether it's your job, whether it's, you know, your financial statuses and stuff like that. And the other side of that is stop trying to keep up with the Joneses, as they used to say, you know, the fancy house, the nice car. Nobody cares. You know, if your friends come over to see your mansion, they might talk about it for the 10-minute ride home to go, man, Bill's got a big house. Then they don't care anymore. Right. You know, it's.
So let's change it up a little bit. Let's look at it from a different standpoint, because like we talked about in the beginning, our theme is, hey, I didn't sign up for this, or this isn't what I signed up for, however you want to look at it. Let's look at it from the standpoint, because we're trying to offer some solutions, and unfortunately some of our solutions before has been, hey, we don't have the answers.
Right.
You know?
That's the fact. You don't have all the answers.
I didn't run this by you, but let's play it from the standpoint of the mom who, you know, like I remember I worked a fatality one time on the interstate, and I assume they had a good relationship. You know, they had 2 kids. Dad passed away in a car wreck, right? Mom now has to pick the pieces up,
right,
and has to take and be mom and dad to these 2 kids.
Right.
On top of it, she's got to go through the grieving process. She's now got to fill the holes, you know, financially that were there, you know, with him being gone now. Fill them emotionally with him being gone, because now typically, you know, your spouse is your biggest supporter. That's your person, you know. Now he's not there, and she's got to figure all this out. Obviously, she didn't sign up for that. That's not what she signed up for, but life happened, all right?
Right.
So we got that scenario. And let's also add the scenario of, let's say, you know, 28-year-old guy, right? He's driving a 1998 Honda Civic because that's all he can afford. He's got to do. Let's say he got a good degree, not in basket weaving or anything like that, anything dumb, you know, like, you know, liberal ice cream studies or anything like that. Let's say he's actually got a good degree,
right,
as a business manager or something like that. But he's at a restaurant that he's making, you know, barely making ends meet, you know, because it's a smaller restaurant or whatever, and he doesn't know how to go from there. Is there something, you know, maybe a obviously we can't say, hey, keep your head up, you know, slugger,
right,
you'll be good. But
you also can't say, you know, hey, take today but tomorrow on those situations.
So we've got a different approach on that, and I don't want to leave these guys out from the scenario, because I know there was a point in my life where I would have been like, hey, while I appreciate what you're saying, this doesn't apply to me, and but I also, you know, and so I think, you know, a lot of people, you know, life happens in a way that you can't expect it to, in a way that, you know, you didn't want it to, and some of it's unpreventable, you know, and some of it is, you know, hey, this, you know, for example, in that scenario, that guy did everything he could to make himself better. It just opportunity hasn't presented itself yet,
right? And
for the mom, who's now got to be mom and dad because dad passed away, and we see that way too much.
Yes.
You know, it's now thrust upon them in that moment to have to do all this. Her, I could say maybe take a day. You know, maybe take today
or 3.
Maybe, I feel like, you know, maybe 3 days. After 3, it's time to suck it up, Buttercup.
Right.
No, I'm kidding.
He's kidding. He's kidding. I know for a fact he's kidding.
It's one of those things where, you know, I don't know that the answer that we can give is for those specific people.
Right.
I think it might be for the people around them.
Yeah.
Who says, hey, hey, look, it's time to be a helping hand. It's time to stop being selfish, and go give them a hand. Like we see it a lot with funerals, and that was I'll give my dad said this one time at a funeral. We had a child in our family pass away, and I remember he was preaching a funeral, and he gave the statement. He said, keep us in your prayers tomorrow. And I thought that was, that kind of struck out to me, because a lot of times, like we go to funerals for friends, we go to funerals for family members. You hug each other. Hey, here's offer my condolences, or whatever condolence is, and you go about your business. You when you leave the graveside or the funeral service, because it's a cremation or whatever, you leave, you're done. I'm showing up to pay my respects. Okay, you did that that's for the dead person.
Right. Right.
But what about the family that's got to pick up the pieces? They're going home, and you might call, you might have called them, honestly, you might have called them before the funeral. Hey, how's everything going, or whatever. Like, oh, it is what it is. But when's the last time you checked on anybody 2 days after the funeral?
Right.
Or even a week after the funeral, because guess what? That loss is still there. It's not
Yeah,
an immediate.
yeah.
You don't get to be like, all right, funeral's done. Ooh, got that. Glad we got that past us.
Right.
No, there's still a massive grieving process, and we leave people out to dry for that. And so that's where I think for the people who are going through that, where a life threw you something that you can't do. I don't have an answer for you. But I got an answer for your friends. They need to be better friends.
Right.
They need to take a moment and say, hey, look, I am going to be here for you no matter what. From the guy who, hey, he's taking in, he's driving his car, he just doesn't have ends meet. I don't know that I've got an answer for that.
The only thing I could suggest for that guy is if you got a good degree and the opportunity hasn't come. And this kind of applies to both situations. And this goes back to something my mama used to tell me, that everything in life at the time is going to be a lesson or a blessing. And you'll find that eventually in life, your lessons turn to blessings. And you're going to be right where you need to be. And
I hate you so much right now.
Why?
Because I had a lady who had a extensive drug history. Or narcotics history. She every time she'd come back from rehab, because she had been about 3 or 4 times that I know of, and every time I talked to her, I could tell if she was telling me statements like that, because that's what they teach at rehab.
Right. My mama never went to rehab.
Then I know she's still clean. But the moment she's like, hey, how's it going, Deputy DePhillips? I knew you're back on the
Yeah, you own it. You own it. You're being too nice.
But it always threw me off. I was like, it's just these candy cutter
Right,
things
right.
getting thrown out there. But anyway.
So, if you're stuck in that boat, because I was in that boat when I got into the military, like I thought for sure, I was like, well, I got 10 years in this. I'm medically retired. Like I'm about to roll on these jobs. That nobody will turn me down. And the local police department, 2 years running, was like, nope, I'm not even gonna call you back.
Right.
And I was just like, okay, all right. I had no clue how to even get into the field, so I ended up with a job at a Harley dealership, and it was like there was no love for anything. They were just like, oh, you're in the military, that's cool. Like, oh, nobody cares, and in reality, that's one of the hard checks that you get when you get out of the military, you get out of whatever field or college and everything else, and they're like, congratulations, you can start Monday.
It's almost like the episode we said a couple episodes back, the world doesn't care about you.
Right. And that's what it was, where it's like, while you're in the military, and they tell you, they're like, oh, if you get a dishonorable discharge, you'll never work, you'll never get a good job. That's bull butter. I know plenty of dudes who had dishonorable discharges who got decent jobs that were able to provide for their families. It doesn't look good, but it's not the end of the world. And nobody cares.
We are not advocating, if you're in the military, for
right,
you
no,
to get a dishonorable
I don't,
discharge. Please ignore what he's saying.
Yeah, I'm not saying that's the route to go.
Oh, gosh.
But
we're getting canceled.
We're not getting canceled.
We're going to get canceled. I see it now.
But it's one of those things where it's like everybody makes a big deal about it, and truly nobody cares. Like, you get the onesies and twosies that are like, hey, thank you for your service, whatever. But I'm almost 40 years old. I'm not 20-year-old me, let's go kick down doors and take out Al Qaeda and everything else. Like, that guy's gone, all right? He's in my brain, but my body is like, no, he ain't here no more. You ain't hiking 20 miles. You ain't doing that. And going back to the funeral aspect, Daddy used to tell me, don't ever ask somebody if there was anything you could do for them. Don't ask, do you need anything? Can I, what can I do for you? He said, you show up, you be there present to do it. He said, but you don't ask. And he said, you don't ask because you don't know what they'll say. Because the moment she says, yeah, you want to pay the mortgage for the next 2 months till I get a job? Like, you asked. Like, don't sign yourself up for something you're not able to follow through on. And it brought me to this thing where it was like, rather than us guys out there, because we do it all the time. Hey, man, you need anything? You good? Ask the question, but be prepared to follow through with it. And the other thing I wanted to bring up is everybody, I see the posts all the time, don't tell me how long to grieve for. Don't, how long does the pain still last? I can tell you, I lost my mother at 17 years old, so 22 years now. The absence is still there. There's times in my life where, talking to you and you're like, yeah, I was just got off the phone with my mama. And in my brain, I'm like, man, I wish for some of the dumb things or the I don't know where to turn or what to do moments that I could call my mom and be like, I don't know what to do. Like, I have no clue which way's up. I've put all of my eggs in this basket, and somebody stole the whole ass basket. Like, I don't know what to do, and you don't have it, and so it's nowhere near the pain of day one, but 22 years later, that's still gonna resonate. It's still gonna, I didn't sign up for 40 years. And realizing that for the last 22 of them, I didn't have a mom to lay back on, and I have a great, step-in mom, which is my stepmom, and she's divorced from my dad now, but I still call her mom. I still call her up when things get rough. It's not the same, and her mom standpoint and my mother's standpoint are two completely different avenues. My stepmom is more of a, it's okay, honey. We'll take it day by day. We'll get through it. Whereas my mom was like, hit them with the left because they won't see it coming, and that was her standpoint, was be aggressive, be loud, and let them know you're coming. And I can say that if you're in that boat where life has hit you with that curveball, you lost your loved one unexpectedly, you didn't plan for it. You have to roll with the punches, and you got to do it in your own pace. But you got to remember not to hang up on it. Don't let that be your catalyst or your hang up where a year, 2 years later, you're still going, oh, I miss them. I need them. I'm falling. I'm struggling. You're going to bring yourself to a point where you're at the bottom and you've unintentionally made yourself a victim beyond your point of victim. There's a time and a place. There's a time and a place to be the victim. There's a time and a place to go, poor me, this sucks. I need a pity party. I want everybody to coddle me, and I want you to, curl me up in the fetal position in bed and put blankets on me.
Right. Let me be the little spoon.
Right. Right.
Let's
it is what it is. Like, let me be the victim here. And I can tell you, honest to God, I've curled up in the shower before in a ball and just let the hot water run out and be like, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. But there's a moment where you've got to go, it's time to turn the water off. It's time to get out of the shower. And it's time to pick myself up and move forward because, A, I'm not going to let them win. I'm not going to let them take me down. I've fought too hard. I've moved through so much in my life that I'm not going to let them be victorious over this. This is not going to be the mountain or the straw that broke my back. But you also have other things that rely on you, be it your children, be it your family, your friends, whatever. There are other entities in the world that rely on you as trivial as you may see yourself. They see you as a mountain. They see you as a rock, and it's one of the reasons that we're such good friends. When I look at you, there are moments when I look at you and I see a supervisor, somebody that I can call on for advice. There's times I look at you and I go, this is an equal to me. And there's times I can look at you and go, I can guide you through what you're going through. And that's the balance that we don't ever realize that you have it until you're at that point in life where you go, I can be a mentor, I can be a friend, and I can be a follower to this person. And if you don't get yourself out of that victim mindset and you stay in that damaged goods area of your life, you're going to be there for the rest of your life. You're never going to pull yourself out. And you're going to be that person 10, 15 years from now, and everybody's like, oh, what happened to Bill, or what happened to Linda, or whatever. And it's like, well, they're still at home crying because 10 years ago they lost somebody and they never healed from it. And that's where we advocate if you can't pull yourself out, find somebody to hold your hand through it, to sit with you through that trauma and walk you out of it, or run out of it, or however you get out of it. It's going back to our first episode. We've never denounced therapy. We've never said don't seek counselors. If you're in that trauma victim status, that's the word. If you're in that status, go seek that mental help, because that's traumatic. You need somebody who can walk you through that. If you're at that point in life where it's like, I've gotten this degree, I put all my effort and energy into being an educated person and get this great job, but that job isn't there, you got to look at the dynamics. Are you in an area where that job is prevalent? Are you in a position to take that job if it were to come available? Are you satisfying your ends to make them meet? Or are you actually trying to get out of I'm a server at a restaurant and I'm barely getting by and I'm struggling, but I have everything it takes to accomplish this? If you're not using what you have, ask yourself, are you the problem? And if you are, why aren't you the solution to your problem? So it's kind of hitting on both heads here. You may not have signed up for the life you're in.
Right.
But you got yourself in that life, and it's up to you to get yourself to where you need to be or want to be. And back to your goals. Are your goals realistic? Is the mansion and the Ferrari and everything else a realistic goal?
Or was it childhood?
Right. Is that, am I looking for a status to keep up with others? Or I didn't go to my 20-year high school reunion because I didn't like them then. I don't like them now.
Right.
But I also didn't want to be that guy that walked in and was like, I'm
a loser.
Right. I didn't accomplish anything.
Right.
I'm nowhere near where I thought I would be. I'm nowhere near where anybody anticipated I would be, or because everybody had the, most successful or voted whatever. I think I was voted most likely to be in prison. I don't know. But I look back at my life and I can say, I had an over 10-year military career. I was highly decorated. I did multiple tours in combat. I did all of these things that mean nothing now.
Right.
I'm a dad. I'm great. I love my kids. I have a house. I have a truck. What does that really accomplish? What goal do I have? And so that's one of the things that I'm like this podcast. We have a goal, we have a mission, and that's to help people. That's to get the word out that, hey, you're not alone in your struggles.
Right.
We've experienced loss, we've experienced trauma, we've been down those rabbit holes of the bottom of the barrel where it's like the Glock or the whiskey, they both look good, and it's not impossible to come out of the dark. It's not impossible to find somebody who can sit with you through your trauma. And you didn't sign up for this, because I guarantee you there's moments in our lives that we didn't sign up for that. And now we're sitting there, doing things like this, and we're going out and trying to better our lives and trying to find a career path, or trying to find a satisfaction with our relationships, whether it's, romantic or cordial friendships or whatever the case is. So, I mean, guys, that's kind of where we're at. That's we get that not everybody signed up for this, but the end all be all is you're not alone. There's hundreds of things that you're going to go through in life that other people have gone through before, and you have to trust. And this is where, as men, it's difficult. We have to trust that somebody has been down that road before.
Right.
If you've committed adultery, if you've cheated on your taxes, or you've done whatever, there's people who have done that and they've recovered from it. if look at the guys that have gone to prison and they've gotten out of prison and they've made successes of themselves. What's a famous guy? It's not Steve Jobs. It's the other one who's still alive. I can't remember his name. Is Steve Jobs still alive?
No.
Who's the other guy? Bill Gates, right?
Okay.
He's going through a divorce right now. Dude's a billionaire. Could literally give half of everything he owns to his wife. Still a billionaire. If a billionaire can get divorced, guy making 20 grand a year can get divorced. Right. You're not alone. It's not the end of the world. You just have to look at it from a different point of view and go, this chapter's over. It's time to start a new chapter. I lost my job. That chapter's over. It's time to find a new chapter. And it may not be what you signed up for, but it's a path that you're on, and it's up to you to get off that path and find the path you need to be walking down.
Well, I think that's going to conclude our episode for today.
I apologize for my tangent. I kind of just went off on the end there.
So we appreciate y'all taking a moment out of your day and listen to this. We do ask, like we do every episode, go ahead. If you hadn't hit that like, subscribe, share button, comment, follow, all the little buttons
all the good
that you
stuff.
got, just hit all of them. Do those for us because that helps track our success, or helps track how much engagement we have.
Right.
If you do find that, hey, you think we're off base, shoot us an email. It's coffeeandthebull@yahoo.com. Or if you're like, hey, look, I like what you're doing. I like, this is making a difference to me. Much like the guy who sent us a review on When the World Goes Dark. Shoot us an email. Send it to us. Let us know. Hey, keep it anonymous, or put my name on it. We will be more than happy to share it with everybody because your story may help somebody else, or your questions may generate a topic for us for an episode that will help you, or it may help somebody else. So let us know what you're going through. Let us know what you think. Even if it's just, hey guys, I think y'all suck. I hate your voices. That's fine.
Right.
Feel free. Just do it in email form. Coffeeandthebull@yahoo.com.
With that, guys, and then I'm speaking specifically to men in this point. We have gotten an overwhelming amount of comments and likes and shares from our female audience.
Y'all
guys,
are losing.
Right. Like, we get it. It's difficult for us to, especially if you don't know us, it's difficult for you to say, hey, I'm emotionally invested, or this is actually helping me get through some struggles of our own. You can send an email anonymously. You can send it to us. It's not, like we're going to look you up or try to track you down. I'm definitely not going to say your name, which is the guy that had sent me the message. He was actually a really good friend of mine. I'm not going to say his name because he didn't tell me I could say his name. So if you feel like showing that insecurity is in any way going to affect your day-to-day, or we're gonna snitch you out as to who you are, I promise you it's not going to happen. Your confidentiality is safe with us. It's more so that we can let other guys know you're not alone and we have your back. And that's what we're here for. I'm not coming to your house at 2 o'clock in the morning because some of you don't live within 60 miles. That's our radius that I'll travel. But that's kind of it for today. Like Mike said, like, follow, subscribe, and share. Coffeeandthebull@yahoo.com.
No.
No.
Toodaloo.
I knew it. You didn't fool nobody. It's stupid. Didn't fool